Good morning, good evening, and good
Morning.
afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. And it brings me great pleasure to introduce Ms. Anita J. Dixon. And there are so many facets to this beautiful woman that stands before you. I'm going to have Anita introduce herself and tell us a little bit about what she would like to share.
Again, okay. I'm recently married, so my name is Anita Dixon Brown now. But I don't, I am a person who's been pursuing what I eventually ended up doing since I was probably 10 years old and gave my first. It's a story my brother likes to tell. When I was 10, there was a clown on TV by the name of Blinky.
Oh,
You
I
know,
remember
was
this.
doing was doing muscular dystrophy carnivals, and you
Mhm.
could call in, and if you wanted to put on a muscular dystrophy carnival in your neighborhood, they would send you this little packet. So I called in and got the packet and put on the muscular dystrophy carnival in my neighborhood and ended up raising $147
Wow.
and sent that money in. And it seemed like I was always on some quest to fix something or do something. And I noticed as I was going along, uh, I I had a daughter, my youngest daughter, who is just my youngest daughter who was born, and she was born with she had autism.
Mhm.
So at 30 years old, I was forced to stay at home. I had a
Okay.
job at a college. I was teaching at a college, entrepreneurship, believe it or not, helping to write business plans and stuff like that for other people. And I had this gift in, fleshing out an idea and putting it to paper. But when my daughter was diagnosed at 18 months, I had to go home. And I went home thinking, now what am I going to do? I can't work. So I created a business called Passage Unlimited. It was one of the nation's first, it was 1991, 1992, actually. And it was one of the nation's first cultural heritage tour businesses. I put together a series of places of interest to African Americans exclusively, Underground Railroad sites and stuff, and was told that I needed to attract white business or I wasn't going to have any business. And I thought, okay, I've been on family reunions.
Mhm.
Some of them are as much as 300, 400 people. We occupy hotels. We spend money. So if I'm the only person giving the African American Heritage Tour, I'll make all the money. So what do I care if the so-called majority community doesn't partake of it or not? It's not for them. So I created this tour that went to significant sites of African American history throughout Missouri and Kansas. And even Black folk were surprised at how much we had. I'm like, you guys don't know about the jazz history of. So as the years went by, I kind of morphed into this consultant. So I started working with the National Park Service, Department of the Interior, and helped to pass a bill called HR 1635, Network to Freedom Act, which
Mm.
helped to preserve the sites of the Underground Railroad throughout the United States and Canada. That was towards the beginning of 2000s. I've helped to put up a number of monuments across the United States and helped, people to understand that words are important. History is important. Preservation is important. But even so, back then, African Americans, were spending like $38 billion a year in travel and tourism.
Mhm.
But in the significant cities, you couldn't go and find any Black information at your local convention and visitors bureau and stuff. Atlanta got the idea, and a number of other, rich heritage Black cities in the United States did. But
Right.
many of the ones in the Midwest, so all this information started coming out, the Tulsa riots, the lynching information, all this stuff started coming out at once. So as a consultant, it was my job to be certain that, I'm consulting on various tourism things across the nation. And I actually was consulting on a tourism piece where some other people other than Black people wanted to open a restaurant.
Okay.
This still drives me nuts. And they had given me this potential menu. And one of them was like a chitlin pasta. And another one was every meal started with watermelon. This was like 2001. Every meal
Wow.
started with an appetizer, watermelon, and there was a chitlin pasta, and of course the obligatory fried chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, they weren't happy with me by the time I was finished tearing that apart.
Mm-hmm.
The next one that was even crazier was someone wanted to do an Underground Railroad park, like amusement park.
Are you kidding me?
No, honey, when I tell you what this business has wrought, as a consultant, if I were a sellout, I'd go, yeah, that's a great idea. So instead, I'm sitting up there listening and seeing these schemes, we're going to show people where this was and that was, and there'll be a underground railroad train ride. And I said, so where are the chopping blocks? Where are the auction blocks going to be? What? I said, the auction blocks. Where are you going to put the auction blocks that the Black people can stand on and let people pry in their mouths and turn them around and make them spread their, so they can check and see what they're buying? That's going to be part of the amusement park, right? Oh, they were just appalled. Well, we're not trying to do that, but you're trying to trivialize what happened. An Underground Railroad amusement park? Whose bright idea was this? And oh, by the way, you are going to pay me for me keeping you out of a massive lawsuit. Okay? You are going to do that. So over the years, the morphing into this international consultant that I've become has been because I've had this ability to forecast, see the future, see the past, kind of like in this expansive bubble, It's never been anything for me that one separated the other. It was always this linear progression that I've seemed to always be a part of. So as I started recognizing that my people spend quite a bit of money on name brands, liquor, clothes, products, services, things like that, I started getting more and more anxious to the fact that we were still being perceived the way we were. So I began to check the media out and seeing how, we're always perceived. The New Housewives of Atlanta and the twerking shows.
Yeah.
Not to say anything about it, because every part of humanity has a subculture, which I tremendously think should be a part of everything. I really do. I spent a long time in Kansas City doing the nightclubs and stuff, learning how to two-step myself.
Okay.
Because that's part of my culture. That's part of who I am. And I began to notice that this was being exploited beyond the other people that we were. highly intellectual, highly adaptable,
Mhm.
highly influential around the world, dance moves, music, everything like that. I wanted to incorporate all of those things. So as that became increasingly more difficult, because people don't, well, people, corporations and things like that, you're seeing this massive, we don't want to hear about that. We don't want to be uncomfortable about that. So there's this massive movement to critical race theory. But the it's out of the box now. You know, whatever Pandora was, is, or however, it's out. There's
Right.
no changing it. There's no going backwards. The massive information, the advent of the internet is the only thing that I see that has been an exclusive avenue to the fixing of what is becoming, what people are understanding about things like reparations and stuff.
Right.
So my consulting, you know, has gotten much more organic and spiritual as I go. So I've gone from this needing to have a business to take care of my child, who is now 33 years old. Okay, I needed to be at home. You know, the most technology I had was a fax machine,
Mhm.
fax man. I needed to go home. I needed to take care of those things. But now, you know, I'm a great grandmother. Things have changed exclusively. And I'm in a position now to realize that everything that I've done since I was 10 years old has led me to this moment. So it's been interesting to say who I am, because I kind of just discovered that like 10 years ago. I was just working, you know, like most people do. You know, I was just out here trying to forge a life, trying to stay alive, trying to stay off the streets, you know, not be
Right.
homeless, eat well, have a little fun here and there, stash a little money in the bank. I was like everybody else. I did not have any idea what I was doing. I was just working. I
Yeah.
have not held an official job since 1991.
Okay.
Okay, and have always been taking care of it. If his eye is on the sparrow, surely he was watching over me because
Well, let me tell you something. You are a little blessing to you are not a little blessing, huge blessing to the contribution of humanity here, as far as I'm concerned, because as much as you can downplay this, what I see is this vast, unbelievable strength within you that just sets the ground afire when it needs to happen. I met you through UNESCO, Kansas City music. So let's talk about music with you, okay? Because, and as
love
much
to.
as you're humbled about how it progressed, you did not come to this world to play small, and nor will I present you as small. Okay,
Thank you.
nor will I
Well,
sit
thank
here
you.
and
Sometimes
make
you feel
and make
yourself
it seem like it's
apologizing
small.
for
No, no,
being
no.
so great. You know, I'm like, I'm pretty cool. You know,
Yes, you
as
are.
I
Yes,
look
you
at things,
are.
I'm
So
pretty
talk
cool.
about UNESCO, Kansas City music, and
Absolutely.
being the founder of the first location here in the in the United States. I say here, I'm here in Africa. Here
Yeah,
in the United States, in United States. Talk to us a little
absolutely.
bit about
Absolutely. Okay. Like I said, in this vast thing, I first of all, my dreams are really what drives me. You know,
that.
I,
Okay.
I look at television, I go to sleep, I have these dreams about things, right? And I wake up going, oh, that's looks like that's possible. And I go to
Mhm.
people and I say, what about this? What about this? We could do this, we could do that. And then I've got this tremendous team. So I'm pretty cool with working with things now. But as far as UNESCO goes, almost listen, in 2017, no, in 2015, I went to the city of Kansas City and asked them to help me work on getting the Mutual Musicians Foundation, which is the oldest jazz house in the world, in 18th and Vine, a World Heritage Site, the neighborhood. And I got all the information and everything, and I went to the city. They had this person who was in charge of the creative culture and in Kansas City. And he kind of played me off. Well, I just got the job, and it's a tremendous undertaking. I'm like, yes, it is. But then I discovered this thing called Creative City. So in 2015, I said, look, if we do this, we knuckle down, we can get this in this year. Oh no, she just came on and we don't want to do that. I said, well, the application only comes around every 2 years. So 2 years later, I come back in January. Look, this thing is due as June. Can we please do? Oh, yes, of course. I'm putting together this blue ribbon panel committee, and we'll be doing this. I said, well, can I help? I do this a lot. I write grants and applications, and I'm pretty good at it. Oh, no, Anita, we've got it. We've got it. Okay. So I wait until May, and I call her up and I say, look, how's it going with the application? She tells me, oh, it was just too much for us to get to this year. We plan on doing that next year. I said, well, honey, it's not going to be around again until 2019. So you have no plans on doing this? No, not this year. Okay. So I went home and I told my husband, these people keep missing this chance and I can't keep doing it. So I've got 28 days to write this over 20 something page international application to make us, I've been through it, I think I can do it. I dedicated 12 hours a day for the next 20 something days to write this application and submit it. Now, from the day I pushed the button on that completed application, I cannot tell you the dips and dives and hurdles and things I had to go through. Right. But it was something that was just moving me. United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Come on. There's nothing higher on this globe for the arts, than this organization that sees itself in Paris as this tremendous network. So I wanted us to be a part of it. The jazz and the history of Kansas City is legendary, but we're like forgotten in the annals of history. It's like you can stand next to other jazz musicians, and we have those who were just as prolific in that time and date, but people don't remember them because Kansas City didn't remember them.
Okay.
And so that was very disturbing, but wrote the application, got the application in. Let's see, it was June, the application. We came in 15 hours under the deadline.
Wow.
That's how tight things were.
Wow.
15 hours under the deadline. It took June, July, August, September, October. October 31st is when they announced that we had become the only creative city of music under UNESCO in the United States.
Wow.
Other people were asking, well, why? Why Kansas City? And I was at a meeting in Nashville and they were like eating me up, like, well, Nashville is a city of music. And so one of the guys at the table said, the only reason why we're not recognized by UNESCO is because Anita Dixon lives in Kansas City.
There you go.
If she'd have lived here, we'd have had that. Because yes, we do. But nobody wanted to tackle that application. When I tell you it was as the kids used to say, it was a booger of an application.
I believe you because I've done like 20-page grant applications before, and it took a team of 6 or 7 of us to meet a deadline, and we started 2 months ahead of time with 6 of us and each taken apart and still just barely made it. So
Okay.
my hat's off to you.
15 hours.
Wow.
I had 35 years of experience of knowing what I was doing. So I kind of had this spiritual team in my head. I had met just about everybody I put on that paper. You know, Jay McShann and, you know, Andy Kirk and all these incredible names in history. I'd worked with some of the greatest historians and stuff in my own community to help me build my business over a 35-year period. I knew where everything was, okay, where the research was, where the information was, where the data was. And I had this thing that no one else had called the internet.
There you go.
Okay, and this innate ability, because you had to answer 4-part questions in characters, not words.
Okay.
So if they gave you 2,500 characters, sometimes that only comes to, you know, 100, 200, 300 words. So you had to answer your questions in characters. People have no idea the editing, but because I had a background in journalism and a background in editing, because of that, you know, I had the tools. Let me put it that way. I had the tools mentally to do this by myself. I had everything.
I have to tell you that is a gift. That is truly, truly a gift. Like many of us are gifted in many different ways. That is a gift. I think that those who are grant writers, and then, you know, the fact that you had the research background, because research is no joke.
No
you
joke.
know, and because it's the right research and it's the right asking the right question.
That's right. That's
Because
right.
if you ask the question wrong, then you lose the whole focus and direction. And you have to be able to perceive and to laser focus in on what is it they're really asking me here.
But exactly.
Not face value. And I learned that. I learned that the hard way.
Oh, always, because when you get critiqued over the years about things and you didn't really answer the question because you didn't this, that, you have to take those things to heart. You have to take those things to understanding.
Yes.
So when I was spending those 12 hours a day, I would literally get up in the morning, do what I had to do, everything like that, and sit down in front of the computer. My grandson graduated from high school that year. And I went to the graduation, but I could only stay a few minutes at the party because I had to go back to the hotel. He was in Texas. I had to go back to the hotel and go back to work to get that done. So, you know, missing stuff in the family and everything, but I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. This is what's going to happen.
You created a landmark there in Kansas City. So talk to us a little bit about the fun stuff that you've been able to bring to Kansas City with the music.
The fun stuff. Let me tell you, nothing could be better than the thing that saved your life. Ever have, you know, a defining moment in your life that you've decided that, well, maybe I shouldn't be here, maybe I'm not doing the right thing, and you're, you know, terribly, horribly depressed and everything. Their music has been that healing balm that I needed on several significant situations. I have such respect for musicians and artists that I feel like they shouldn't have to do nothing but create. Don't be out here trying to get money. I'll do that. Don't be out here trying to argue your case. I'll do that. I'll take care of that. Other organizations like mine and people like mine will take care of that. So the music, even more than poetry, so to speak, or art, the music permeates the soul like nothing else. Like nothing else. You can see a picture or something and be moved, of course, and everybody has a different opinion. But when it comes to music, my husband once said, there's no language required.
That's right.
It's, you know, you do what it is what it is. And for Kansas City, the history of the music is what they asked me in the application. There's 1 million festivals around the world a year. What would make yours different? And I answered, it is virtually the indigenous music of the colonization of the United States. It is it. The swing era of music was a progression that came beyond after New Orleans and various places, but Kansas City is where jazz grew up. Okay, and I want people to remember that. And we have an intact location here we call it the Mutual Musicians Foundation, but it was called Local 627 at one time, or the Colored Musicians Union. It was segregated, you know, that musicians were segregated, but we had our own musicians union. And this place, this is 1823 Highland in Kansas City, is the building that they bought in 1930 and put themselves in it and got a charter. They became charter members of the American Federation of Musicians in 1917.
Wow, okay.
So the year that we got the UNESCO Creative City of Music was exactly 100 years later.
Now, how beautiful is that?
Exactly 100 years later. So,
and go ahead.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry. So our contributions to this world as musicians had to be known. Swing era, you know, come on now, the dance, the music, the people, the era, the time, you know, in 1917, just what was going on in America. But now we have these huge jazz conservatories and everything is so intellectual. I went to, and I won't say where I went, but I went to this very renowned jazz place in the United States and sat in on this classroom. And this guy was just lauding that I was there. Oh, and Miss Dixon is here and she's going to tell you all that I've told you that. So he was giving this lecture about how Count Basie and all these people in Kansas City have put together all these elaborate bands and, you know, they sat down and forged an idea and, you know, it was very intellectual, very, you know, very up here. I'm sitting there, but I'll let Miss Dixon tell you this. So I said, you sure? You want me to tell you this? Oh, yes, you confirm and let them know what a, you know, well thought out, you know, okay. I said, well, in Kansas City, we had dance floors that held 2,000 people. There was no such thing as these big, you know, they were acoustically great and some of them weren't. Okay, so the more people you had in your band, the more you could be heard. It's very simple. There was one microphone that went to the piano and the singer. Okay, everybody else had to stand up. And if you could afford to get enough people in the room, the vibrations could be felt on the floor and people could dance. So understanding that it went from this little thing like they did in New Orleans where it was opened up and everything, it had everything to do about the gig. Okay, who was gonna get the gig where 2,000 people showed up to dance? How were they gonna be heard? So yeah, they positioned people, but it was all about the gig. It wasn't about the placement of, because you never knew what you were gonna walk into. Okay, there was a stage and then there wasn't a stage. There might have been a rising for the drummer, and then there wasn't a rising for the drummer. There
Right.
might have been one piano that hadn't been tuned in 5 years. But the microphone had to go there because that was the only one they had.
Right.
So, I don't know about all of this, writing. I'm sure they did it, but I don't think that's what they had in mind. They had in mind getting paid and doing the gig and making sure people enjoyed dancing. So realize this was in a time of the Lindy Hop, where people were being thrown across rooms and all kinds of stuff, sweating bodies, wasn't no air. Okay. This guy, you could have bought him with a nickel and got some change. Okay, because he was absolutely infuriated with it. I said, so simplicity is the best way to look at this. Think of a room with 2,000 people in it trying to dance at once and see if you can hear the music now.
Right.
To position it, and they had to get the best guys. They asked Duke Ellington one time, how come he had the best band? He said, come, listen closer. I pay the most money. I
have to tell you, I grew up around the music like that. My father was born in 1919. My mother was born in 1921. They did the Lindy. They did the swing dance. They used to talk about Harlem and the bands were playing and the dance contests were there and how they were always in it,
Always in it. But think about the lineage that we had back then. You had a public school system that continuously put out people that you could get to play in your bands. There were requirements. These great people taught at school, Jane McShann and Count Basie, and they had school gigs. You had to pay for stuff. You could be a musician back then and put meat on the table.
Yes.
Okay, so these people are taking, and I won't say they're taking it out of context, they're just trying to make it sound as if it were too intellectual for our reach now.
Right.
And that's what disturbs me the most. It came out of our culture. It was the voyage of the drum.
Yes.
So that's what I called the event. What would make mine different? I can definitely, through Kansas City, track enslavement to jazz. I can track it. I can show where they deposited them in St. Louis. They gave me those big St. Louis blues and all of that stuff, and Scott Joplin,
Chicago.
I can do it.
Yeah.
And I can take them from one end of Kansas City to the other and demonstrate all of it. Africa, to ragtime, to swing, to bebop, to modern fusion, right here in Kansas City. I can do it in a festival that people can listen and hear the progression as they walk through the festival. I can do that. Okay, that's something that I've realized that I thought I wanted to do, and we called it the Voyage of the Drum.
I love it.
And that's what it is. It's what enslavement gave to this country as a gift. So and I won't say over intellectualize it, because we are very intellectual people. We follow a code, a creed in our music, the 2 and the 4.
Yes.
You don't let people clap on the 1 and the 3. Yes. So that inner spirituality translated into everything that we did musically, everything. So everything that they hear in the United States, jazz and blues particularly, R&B, Motown, Watt Stack, hip hop, 50 years old now. That is all the Voyage of the Drum. Every bit of it is.
Yes, it is.
So all I can say is, let's debate it if that's what you want to do.
Mhm.
You know,
I love it. I love
I
it.
mean, you know, I tend not to over intellectualize it because it kind of strips the soulfulness out of it.
Right.
You know, but John Coltrane actually put it into a mathematical equation. So it can be done, but surely he's not up there taking his little thing and going, yeah, well, this is jazz. And that's no, he's
No.
taking it and making you understand that it has structure, that it has those things. The structure is ancient. How else can you explain that most Black folk can dance, and when you see one that can't, you wonder what's up? You know, why can't you get this? You know, it there's a structure built into it. I asked this one poor little thing. She's a sweetheart too. My girl asked me, "How come Black people are able to do what each other does?" I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "Like in line dancing, I can do line dancing." I said, "Sure you can." She said, "But I can't go in your community and do line dancing." I said, "Well, why not? Why don't you think you can?" She said, "Because everybody already knows it." She said, "You might find somebody in the Black community who's never done your line dance, but 10 minutes later, they out there doing it too." You know, how do you explain? How do you explain to someone when all has been stripped from you, the that you have been given this ability to rejuvenate under whatever it is that you need to do because it's a necessity? When you think about all that has happened to Black people, especially
Yes.
right here, I won't say especially, but here in the colonized country of America,
Mhm.
you know, to be envious of me being able to go on the dance floor and kick up my heels at one time is just getting just too much.
Yeah.
You know, the whole appropriation thing is driving me nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we
Yeah.
can do that. Well, I can do that. Well, sure you can. But why would you want to discount me creating it? That's all I'm saying.
Right. Right.
I don't
This
mind
is
you. I don't mind Peggy Lee. I love her. I love
Mhm.
Jay Brubeck. I love Gene Krupa. I love
Mhm.
Louis Belson. All those people that internalized our music were great artists, but they always gave us our dues. I learned this from Ella. I learned this from the Count. I learned this, you know, not I
Yeah.
took that and I do that better than you. I had
Right.
this one guy tell me one time that he did Charlie Parker better than Charlie Parker.
Ah, please.
I said, no, 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 no. What you're trying to say is you imitate everything that Charlie Parker did right down to the sound of the note.
Mhm.
Does not make you the
Right.
innovator.
Mm-mm.
Definitely makes you the imitator, but does not make you the innovator. So let's get that up. I do Charlie Parker rather than Charlie Parker. Like that's just the stupidest thing in the
Can you do
world.
Marion Brown?
Okay. Can you? But you know, we look at a world now that music is kind of like being exploited, but particularly young musicians, you know,
Mhm.
exploited, and then they're turning things around. You've got your NFTs and your internet accessibility and,
Right.
you know, your own crowd. They're not
Right.
out here trying to be uh, Grammy winners or anything anymore.
Right.
A lot of
Right.
them are. They just want to play the music and be a part of history, whichever way they
Exactly.
can. That young lady, Samara Joy,
Mhm. Mhm.
what a breath of fresh air.
Yes.
She inherited the essence of Dinah Washington and Nancy Wilson, and
Yes.
beautiful voices. And she just makes me cry. I just think, oh man, all this work, and there's a Samara Joy. That'll work. You know, that'll work.
So
Sister. It
I
really.
want to get to you and ask you if you want to share anything about Voyage of the Drum too.
Oh.
And if you don't, it's okay.
Oh
But
no,
I
no, no, no. The opus, honey. The
yes, the
so,
opus.
I'm 67 years old. I'm a 4-time heart patient, open heart surgery, all this business. I'm vibrant, I'm blessed, but it's like, okay, I've got more behind me than I do ahead of me, and I dig that. So what is going to be that I get an opportunity to really pass on to get this thing going? I've been hearing about reparations and even me myself said, how are they gonna pay us back? It's not gonna happen, right? But over the years, so we've got this Voyage of the Drum. Voyage of the Drum 1 went great. Okay. Voyage of the Drum 2 is a extension into the world understanding that the world's wealth has been built on the backs of the Black man of the world. As the kids say, PERD. There is no other, there's just, you didn't do it on your own, okay? Straight up.
Right.
Just
Period.
didn't. You didn't. You inherited everything. Well, my grandfather, great grandfather inherited. No. Go back to how your great grandfather was deeded some land that was not his. So he was told to go down there and take it, and he would be backed up. Okay, he would be backed up. The government would back him up. Move the Indians and everybody off your land because I said in America that you own this piece. And yeah, it might have been in your family for the last 4 generations. But no, it doesn't belong to you. But the Voyage of the Drum 2 identifies through our creative ability is taking of the history of this world's wealth that is accumulated over 7 continents.
Right.
Through libraries and information and manifestos and various things, and taking those words and putting them to poetry, making people hear, the devastation, the numbers. If you go back in history of certain Black folk, the only way they're able to identify even one generation of their ancestors is by a number or a sex. Right. Number 5, female. Put the right day and the time to stuff, you might find out that was your great, great, great grandmother. You might find that out. You might find that out. So everybody knows because of this, we originated from Africa. Right. Again, hurry. Let's not debate that. When somebody asked me, were the Aborigines of Australia Africans? I just kind of, well, no, they're not. They didn't. So where did they come from? Tell me that this black skin and this curly hair and these blue eyes and this blonde skin, how where? When they've already shown you that the Eve gene originates in a Black woman. Why can't you believe that? Because you had killing fields for them. You hunted them like rabbits and destroyed their communities in history.
Took their children. Yes.
So come on now. The world owes Black folk. But how do we go about saying this without this, without that,
Yeah.
because it's not being effective.
No.
I could sit on panels all day and say this, and they walk out with a grimace on their face.
Mhm.
She's trying to make me give up my God-given right to whatever. But put it in a song, put it in a poem that's in a book. One of the best people to have ever done it won the Pulitzer Prize, Tahimba Jess. He's working with us. He is going to be working with us to get the rest of the continents to pull together that information and get the poets out. So words is going to start with the words. So you start with the lyrics, and then you go to the musicians for the music. And you put that together so people will hear you. They're not hearing this, but they hear lyrical. They hear the lyrics of the truth.
Yeah.
Marvin Gaye wrote, "What's going on?" You can, I just want to know, Sam Cooke, all these words of the civil rights movement and songs of freedom, our Underground Railroad songs, our spiritual gospel songs. People sing them, they don't even know what they're singing, but they sing them.
It's true.
They sing them. When you're a child and you're in school and you're in church and you're singing these songs, you don't know they sang these songs on their way to freedom. Nobody ever told you that, but the songs and the music lived on.
Yeah.
Mammy's little baby loves shortening, shortening. Mammy little baby. How many times shortening bread have I sang that song? What's shortening bread? Put on the skillet, put on the lid. Mammy gonna make a little shortening bread. That ain't all she gonna do. Mammy gonna make a little coffee too. I mean, what? That was enslavement songs. We got our share of the molasses and the cornmeal and that stuff. And we were so happy with what we had. We sang songs.
We did.
Mammy
and they were passed down generation. I'm sitting here, my mother, I got shoes, you got shoes, all of God's children.
All God's children got shoes.
When I get to heaven,
put on my shoes. Walk all over God's heaven.
Yep.
Heaven.
Yep.
Wait a minute. Everybody talking about heaven ain't gone there.
Heaven. Yep.
That one.
Yep.
Gonna walk all over God's heaven.
God's heaven.
Come on, now that's us. So I'm thinking when I was trying to connect with these other countries, because we're in UNESCO, we're the only creative city of music in the United States. We have the most significant documented history of the Underground Railroad and our flight to freedom than anyone. I won't say than anyone. Ghana.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Because I lived upstate New York. On Off Road, which is on the trail to the Underground Railroad, on the trail of the Underground Railroad, on the way to Harriet Tubman's house.
Okay.
So, and certain houses were actually marked where we knew that they put out quilts to say the message that you're welcome to come, that they had the light in the window lit, you can come in. Blown out, you don't come, you can't come, it's not safe, right? The houses that are still preserved, that have the removable fireplace base floor so that you could walk down, put the cover over it and build a fire on top of it so that you could hide. I mean, it's all there.
Okay.
It's all there.
In Kansas City, Kansas, they have the excavations of an Underground Railroad city. that they've been trying to save for the last 45 years from a landfill. They were going to fill it up with garbage. And we have been fighting for 45 years
Wow.
to stop that. So my thoughts on UNESCO and things like that was, I've got to get higher than the people around me, because they're not getting it, or they don't care to get it.
Right.
And as long as I'm still working at this level, that's as high as I can rise. I need to rise above that. I need to be dealing with that. So we are now dealing at the table of the world. So music, and being the only creative city of music in the United States, we just got our trademark of International Jazz Hall of Fame. We just received that.
Okay.
So now we're in a position to understand how words to music is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be able to take the history of the world that is truth, that you can find, that is on manifestos and in the documentation of the building of this country. Take those words and then put those words to music, so we can have a Mammy Little Baby Love shortening. So when the songs come out and people start singing them, who doesn't sing Amazing Grace? But how many people know that it was a white slave captain that penned those words?
Mm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's a necessity. So words to music is like what I probably understand to be the beginnings of reparations being distributed for real.
Okay.
And how that takes shape, how that takes form, I'm not quite sure. I just know that there's going to be some prolific music and poetry to come out of this that will be undeniably a treasure.
Absolutely.
Maybe 100 years from now, I don't know. But it'll be what the art and the understanding of these people in the world understand finally, because it's in prose and it's in music.
Exactly.
And can be accessed because of that. So these musicians are going to get out here and do what they do. These poets are going to get out here and do what they do. And
which is so beautiful and so necessary, because our traditions from Africa, me being here in Africa, were always oral traditions.
yes.
And the oral traditions were passed down from generation to generation to generation. And a lot of times we don't even realize that what we've heard, the storytelling that has taken place, is our reality, is our history, is our foundation. And you're right, when you sing them, you don't forget the song. You do not forget the song. I can remember the very first Swahili song that was taught to me in African dance class. And I was probably 5 years old, but I could sing that song for you right here and right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that stays with you. It's ancestor memory, it's body memory, it's vibrational memory.
It's all of that.
At the DNA level.
There was a lady that was our neighbor. She was a Jewish woman who had survived Auschwitz. And we got to be friends. I was a 9-year-old little kid. I was a very curious kid. And we got to be friends. I would help her weed her garden and everything. And I saw the tattoos on her arm. I asked her what they were. She wouldn't tell me. She said, "You go ask your mother about that." That was a bad time. So in school, during Christmas, we learned, one of my teachers were Jewish, and we learned a song called Festival of Lights.
Mm-hmm.
We celebrate the Festival of Lights in December. 8 shining candles will help. Definitely a Jewish song.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm 67 years old. I know every line of that song still. And I came back and sang it for my friend, Mrs. Silverberg. Stories of the brave Maccabees long ago. Who were the Maccabees? I found out later, but I didn't know that. Every night a candle is added to a globe. Come sing and be happy. Come sing a Hanukkah song.
And you're singing, you're talking
Music.
about the Hanukkah lights.
Yeah, I didn't know. The teacher taught us the song, okay, and told us it was a Jewish song. So I went back and told my neighbor, I have a song I want to sing for you. I've been working on a play for years called A Song for Mrs. Silverberg. Okay, just these are the things that brings people together. Music. Somebody wrote the lyrics to that song and somebody put it to music and taught it to little Black kids in a school.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you how prolific this is, because here I am in Angola. And when I first started visiting Angola, I toured all over. And I went to places where Westerners have never been seen.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, Westerners have never been seen.
Mm.
And here I am sitting in a little village with a family, and they speak Ovumbundu, not even Portuguese, Ovumbundu, the original language. And I speak English. But guess what? We sang together. And when I sang, they were able to mimic my words. And when they sang, they were able not only to just project this beautiful song out there, but then that's when the crawling in my lap came. That's when the whole differences broke down.
We went to Mexico and taught. Yeah, we went to Mexico and taught some kids some gospel songs, and one of them yelled from across the room, "Wakanda forever!" So, you have to get to the soul of people, and music does that.
Music does that.
There's I can't think of, if there's going to be reparations, understanding, and movements toward really doing that, it has to start with the people who are creative enough to get in the spirits of others.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and that's going to be a tremendous undertaking, because that's going to cost. What we envision is a lot of things that go along with that: preservation opportunities, tourism opportunities, recovery of land opportunities, distribution. Everything will come out of this. Everything will come out of this. 7 continents, starting in America. Starting here. At the Quindaro, the Underground Railroad city, and spreading through the United States, concerts and various things. So I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes just absolutely overwhelmed, because, like Martin said, I've been to the mountaintop. This is what I've seen. So as my time comes to that, I'm trying to impart as much as I can onto others to understand this is where we're going, people. It was not our trek in the desert, our 40 years or whatever, is about over what you cannot do something and have something happen to you and it be a forever thing. That's not the deal. That's not how God works. That's not how the Spirit works. That's not the deal. You will not forever be a captive. You just won't. You weren't at one time, so you won't be again. So stop. Stop and understand that this world is doing that. It is backing up and moving forward at the same time. That's a different thought. That's a different thought. You don't have to look backwards. We can look forward, but you got to know where you're going.
Exactly. Have to.
Got to know where you're going. You can all day long talk, oh, you got to know where you've been. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. But we got a lot of that where we been stuff. Okay, where are we going? Where are we going? And we have to have that direction, and we have to have that turnkey. And as people, and I'm gonna say people of color because I'm Black, you know, you can be a person of color if you so choose. That's
Mhm.
your okay. You know, I'm serious, you know, like, oh, as a woman of color, as a Black woman, I corrected a
As
woman
a
once
Black.
3 times before she realized that I was correcting her. Well, as a woman of color, as a Black woman, well, yes, 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 as a woman of color, as a Black woman, okay, for me, there's a distinct difference, okay, distinct difference. So, you know, like them people are asking you to call them them and they. I ask you to call me a Black woman. Okay, can we do that? Can we please do? Because I know you don't see nothing else. You know, you don't see an of color person when you look at me. You know, you don't. You know, no, you don't see of color. You see a Black woman, and I know you do. So I'm not, you know,
You do,
and
right?
as far as being African American, I'll count out of that somewhat, you know, somewhat, because wasn't it Charlize Theron is African American.
Yes, she is. She's African and she's American. She was born in South Africa.
That's
I'm
right.
a Black woman.
So I have to be even more distinctive. You can call me African American and I won't be upset, you know, or anything like that. But anytime you lump me up with Charlize Theron, we ain't, that ain't happening. But you won't call her a Black woman, I bet you. So I am a Black woman, not a person of color, not a woman of color. I'm a Black woman. And I am happy about it, actually. Very happy about it. Because, you know, if you just keep your hands out of my hair, I'm good. You know, girl, look, I'm gonna tell you, I went to vote. You know, I live in a very, very, very country rural town outside of Kansas City. So I go to my little local polling place to vote, and I have my locks up in a turban type thing. And this guy was like, you know, you can't wear that here. I thought, oh, they think I'm Muslim. Okay, you know, I'm not gonna even pick your fights, Anita. So I took it off and my locks did this. First thing he did was I I took it off. Now, can I get he was outdone. They were outdone. They watched me the whole time I was there like, lady said, so that wasn't a hat? I said, no, ma'am, it was not a hat. I wrapped that up. She was, oh. Let me see. I get your hands out of my hair. Please.
You know, and that's it's probably happened to many people. It's happened to me too. So
Hey, this was a decision like I had a white colleague that hadn't seen me in 15 years. And she came to see me and she's like, oh my God, when did you do that? I said, what do you mean, when did I do this? So how long did it take? I said, 15 years. Oh, those aren't braids? No, ma'am, this is sprouting out of my head. Like, really? You don't know that? I've just never seen them so long. I've seen them to the ground. I've seen them make sacks for their hair.
there you go.
Walk around with it in it. You know, you've never been to Jamaica, baby girl. So
Right?
I can't mention. But no, I didn't sit for somebody to stick these in my head. I really didn't. So, you know, we've got the Voyage of the Drum just back, you know, is going to be the definitive solution question mark answer to what's the next step towards reparations.
Yeah.
I may not be here in my lifetime to see how far it will go, but I do know that the healing balm of music and its effectiveness is going to change the world. Definitely. There's no question. Music has always done it. Music will always do it. Words and poets and troubadours and griots and people who carry the message of the creative will always do it.
Mm.
There's no question. There's no problem. There's no nothing. It's the way things are in the world. So I just happen to be one of thousands of messengers that have been and have yet to be. So this is a very exciting time for me. Very exciting.
No, I'm going to say, and continue to be.
Continues to be.
Continue to be.
And then I got to meet you and Christina and Bouquet. And oh my God, yesterday was so amazing. I can't wait to start. One guy told me, he said, Anita, I do believe you are a force of nature. Because once you get your mind around something, I said, if I can be passionate about something, if I can eat it, drink it, live it, I want to see it manifested.
Yes.
And I will do anything that's absolutely necessary to see that happen. Okay, because it's such a beautiful thing to watch. And that proposal yesterday,
yes.
I was
you attracted it. You attracted us.
That's what they say. And I'm so grateful because Bukeka, I'm like, Bukeka, I'm running out of energy. I had a stroke in October. Last October.
No, I didn't know that.
And I told her, I'm running out of energy. And it was, if it weren't for my great grandbaby being born, I think I was at that point where you kind of go like, well, I'm tired. And then my grandson said, well, I got news. I said, oh, okay, what's up? He said, you're gonna be a great grandma. Oh, that perked me up, made me get out of bed. I thought, really? Honestly? He said, yeah, so don't kick out now. I thought, oh my goodness. And I literally got out of bed minutes after speaking to him and started working on my health. I just went to Paris. Wow. So, I'm not giving up the ghost yet.
Please don't. We need
no.
We need you.
No. But it's such a beautiful thing to watch these things happening and then say to yourself, okay, who's going to be, because I got this from someone. I got this from a guy named Eddie Baker in 1986.
Okay.
In 1986, I had just turned 30 years old. And I ran into a guy out partying, doing my thing, working, all that other, hadn't had the second baby yet. And he says, I'm trying to do some work. I'm doing this thing called the International Jazz Hall of Fame, and we're working on the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. I'm like, really? Oh, well, if you need some help, I type. Oh, no, I got involved. Volunteer runner. I watched the idea get diluted till it almost disappeared.
Oh, no.
And last year, when I was looking for something else on the trademarks, I saw that the International Jazz Hall of Fame was open, they call it a dead file. The name was available again.
Wow.
And I applied for it. And 1 year and 3 days later, we had International Jazz Hall of Fame back.
You can't go anywhere. We need you. You're
I
not
said to Eddie,
you're not gonna go wrong there.
Eddie died in 2006.
Okay.
And I have all of his work, all that he did to try to do the International Jazz Hall of Fame. UNESCO, the only creative city of music in the United States, now owns the trademark International Jazz Hall of Fame. We got plans.
Good.
Bring back that original idea and make sure that people remember how great Kansas City was in the creation of the only indigenous music known to America. So
beautiful.
yeah.
Anita, we're coming up past a little bit past an hour.
I know,
now.
I saw that. I'm like, girl, you're talking too much.
So I'm going to reserve the right to ask you back, and I'm going to ask you back closer to the October time frame, and I'm not going to tell the audience why. I'm just going to ask you back around that time frame.
Well,
okay?
you'll be doing your show from Kansas City, because we have every intention of bringing you here and letting everybody know what we know, so they'll know how strong this thing called attraction, how strong. That's all you got to do is say it. Say what they say, name it, claim it. We've been saying that since we were children. Name it and claim it. That's it. That's what I do. I name it, I claim it, and I go after it. Okay?
Absolutely. And I want to leave it the last note with you. Any wise words of wisdom that you want to say to our audience, leave our audience with?
Absolutely. This my mother's favorite thing. Compromise make a good umbrella, but a poor ass roof. You have to get exactly what you want in order to be happy. If you turn around and you compromise yourself or your idea or your thing or your health or your anything like that, you will not get the desired result that you want. So compromise makes a good umbrella, but a poor roof. We do not have to compromise our history in order to be heard or seen. We don't have to give up anything. We don't have to dumb ourselves down. We don't have to do that. So compromise is never on my table. I'll work with you. We can walk hand in hand. But when you tell me to give up something so you can have, no, it's not going to ever work for me. So I don't work on that principle, and I don't expect anybody else to. What do you want? Say what you want. And let's see if we can get what I want and what you want. Let's see.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. It has been such a joy and such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. That was fun. As you know, I'm talking.
So this has been another episode of The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. And we thank you, Anita Dixon, for joining us. And please, we will have the information so that you can find out more about Kansas City, Music City, Creative Cities, and we will have more to touch base with Anita Dixon. So thank you. And
thank you. And I'll see you soon, sister. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.